Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're discussing the story of West Side Story, from stage to screen.
Tonight, the world is full of light.
For this video, we'll be looking at this timeless musical's evolution, from its stage inception to its silver screen debut to its relevance today. How were you introduced to West Side Story? Let us know in the comments. The idea for West Side Story was conceived in 1947, but the story's roots can be traced back to the 16th century, when William Shakespeare scribed a little play entitled Romeo and Juliet.
Suddenly realized great parallels between the passion and temper of the adolescence of old Verona and the passion and temper today.
Around the same time he won a Tony Award for choreographing high-button shoes, Jerome Robbins approached composer Leonard Bernstein and playwright Arthur Lawrence about turning Shakespeare's romantic tragedy into a modern musical. Robbins envisioned the leads as Irish Catholic and Jewish.
Jerry's idea was this was to be a Catholic girl, Jewish boy on the Lower East Side in New York.
The star-crossed lovers would be torn between Catholic jets and Jewish emeralds, set during Easter Passover. Taking place on the Lower East Side, the musical was to be entitled East Side Story.
The original idea came from reading the script of Romeo and Juliet and trying to find out how I could make it a contemporary, alive project.
While Lawrence and Bernstein were enthusiastic, the trio noticed several parallels to the play Abbey's Irish Rose. They thus walked away from East Side Story. But the project gained momentum again while Lawrence was working on a stage adaptation of the novel Serenade. Although that play never got off the ground, the experience introduced Lawrence to an up-and-coming lyricist and composer named Stephen Sondheim. Lawrence soon reconnected with Bernstein, and the two discussed reworking East Side Story into a musical about rival gangs, an increasingly prominent social issue.
Lenny and I were in Hollywood at the same time. We were sitting with our legs dangling in the pool, talking about the riots that had been the day before with Chicano gangs. And I thought, that could be Romeo and Juliet.
Puerto Rican immigration to the U.S. would also become a key theme. Robbins loved this new direction, leaving the film adaptation of The King and I to work on East Side Story, later retitled West Side Story.
The problem of intolerance and the price one has to pay for having it in one's culture is an enormous one and a tragic one.
Bernstein initially wanted the story to be set in Los Angeles, although New York naturally became the backdrop.
We need Tony. He's got a rep that's bigger than the whole West Side.
The male lead evolved into a Polish-Irish teen named Tony, while the leading lady became a Puerto Rican immigrant named Maria.
Not thinking I'm someone else.
I know you are not.
Or that we've met before?
I know we have not.
Like its Shakespearean source material, Lawrence's book originally had the Juliet character fake her death and take her life. This was abandoned along with the Rosalind character and the presence of the protagonist's parents.
How many? And still have one bullet left for me. Oh, no.
With Bernstein engulfed in the music, Betty Comden and Adolph Green were considered to write the lyrics, but they flew off to work on Peter Pan. Lawrence thus turned to Sondheim, who accepted the gig with some encouragement from his mentor Oscar Hammerstein.
I didn't want to do it, but my sort of surrogate father and mentor was Oscar Hammerstein.
The song One Hand, One Heart was originally written for Bernstein's operetta Candide. Hammerstein suggested moving One Hand, One Heart from the balcony to the bridal shop. In its place, the now iconic Tonight was written.
Tonight, tonight, there's only you tonight. What you are, what you do, what you
music for G. Officer Krupke was also recycled from an unused Candide song.
G. Officer Krupke were very upset. We never had the love that every child ought to get. We ain't no delinquents, we're misunderstood. Deep down inside us there is good.
Sondheim had wanted to end the song with a certain four-letter word, but at the demands of Columbia Records, it was changed to Krupp You.
G. Officer Krupke, Krupp You!
As everything seemed to be coming together, producer Cheryl Crawford backed out and nobody wanted to take her place.
We all worked together to bring this about.
It took them 10 years to get it financed. Nobody believed that you could do a show about these young kids struggling on the Lower East Side and stuff.
It looked like West Side Story may be scrapped altogether. But producer Hal Prince was convinced to step in thanks to his friend Sondheim and mentor George Abbott. During rehearsals, Robbins wanted to take a method acting approach, keeping shark and jet actors separated.
Whispering in our ear one thing and in their ear another.
After 2 weeks of rehearsal, we wore our own colors, we never mingled.
Following tryouts in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, West Side Story made its Broadway debut in 1957 with Larry Kert as Tony, Carol Lawrence as Maria, and perhaps the greatest breakthrough, Chita Rivera as Anita. West Side Story was mostly well received by audiences and critics, especially for its innovative use of dance.
You could really feel history, I swear.
While the notoriously negative Walter Kerr gave a mixed review, even he described Robbins' choreography as, quote, the most savage, restless, electrifying dance patterns we've been exposed to in a dozen seasons.
There always was a kinetic motor, which had a need for it to be demonstrated by dance. And it always was a great, wonderful, exciting trip to choreograph to Lenny's music.
Yet the show had a relatively short Broadway run of only 732 performances. At the Tonys, Robbins won for Best Choreography, while Oliver Smith's scenic design was also awarded. However, the show lost Best Musical to The Music Man. Today, it's not uncommon for stage musicals to depict violent deaths, real-world issues, and tragic endings. West Side Story was ahead of its time, though, and the public wasn't quite ready to fully embrace it.
But West Side Story's biggest success was yet to come.
Nevertheless, West Side Story proved successful enough to inspire a film adaptation 4 years after its Broadway debut. Robbins was enlisted to direct the project, although he'd be paired with an established Hollywood director, Robert Wise. Although Robbins wanted a then 29-year-old Lawrence to reprise her role, Natalie Wood won the part of Maria after the producers saw her in Splendor in the Grass.
When we grow up, that we have to forget the ideals of youth.
Many high-profile stars were considered for Tony, including Burt Reynolds, Warren Beatty, and Elvis Presley.
It really tells a story, friends.
Rust Hamblin, who was ultimately cast as Riff, also tried out for Tony, before the filmmakers settled on Richard Beymer.
Then why don't you say something?
Because I don't want to hurt your feelings. You're my buddy, my pal, my best friend.
Whoop to tomb?
Burst to earth.
Multiple ghost singers were hired as well, most notably Marnie Nixon for Maria.
And then after it was filmed, they told her that they were going to throw out all those tracks and that I was going to redub her voice into the movie.
Wood's singing voice does pop up during Tony's death, however.
Hold my hand and I'll take you there. Somehow, someday,
The film remained mostly faithful to its stage counterpart, although several songs were shifted around. Sondheim felt G. Officer Krupke and I Feel Pretty should both take place before the Rumble, as they are both more optimistic.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
Cool was moved to the considerably darker second half, while America now took place between Maria and Tonight.
I like to be in America, okay by me in America. Everything free in America.
for a small fee in America.
Wise brought a cinematic eye to the story, a highlight being the establishing helicopter shots of New York.
It was my idea for that helicopter opening, shooting straight down, to show a New York, but a kind of abstract New York, a New York that even New Yorkers hadn't seen.
We took the door off the helicopter and I held his belt, and he hung out of the helicopter.
With Robbins handling the choreography, the directing duo found a perfect balance of gritty realism and whimsy. The production wasn't without setbacks, however.
Robert Wise is the most gentle, tender, loving, patient man in the world. Jerome Robbins was cut from another piece of cloth entirely. He was not gentle, he was not tender, he had a vicious temper.
The film ran over budget and behind schedule with numerous injuries.
When I fell, there was a nail on the set, and it went into my knee.
I torn all the ligaments in my back, and Joanne had ripped or torn something to shreds.
Tensions escalated when the producers gave Robbins the boot, leaving his assistants to finish the unfilmed dance numbers.
We began to feel that perhaps we had too many cooks.
They fired Jerry halfway through the picture.
Wise still felt he should share directing credit with Robbins, who continued to provide insight even after his dismissal. Despite these hurdles, West Side Story opened to rave reviews, becoming the highest-grossing film of that year, and garnered 11 Academy Award nominations. To guarantee his choreography wouldn't go unrecognized, Robbins received an honorary Oscar. Robbins also shared in a Best Director win with Wise, while George Chakiris won Best Supporting Actor for playing Bernardo, while Rita Moreno won Best Supporting Actress for playing Anita. West Side Story has since been revived on Broadway in 1964, 1980, and 2009. Karen Olivo would win a Tony for her turn as Anita in the latter production. Another revival hit Broadway in February 2020, cutting I Feel Pretty and introducing several modern innovations. With COVID on the rise, the timing wasn't on this revival's side. Steven Spielberg's film adaptation was set to premiere later that year, but the studio pushed it back to December 2021.
You want to start World War III?
I want to be happy here.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. While the new film has some star power in Ansel Elgort's Tony, Spielberg primarily sought out rising talent, with Rachel Zegler making her feature debut as Maria.
I never seen you before. You're not Puerto Rican.
Is that okay?
The remake isn't straying too far from its predecessor's roots, casting Moreno as Valentina, who serves as a replacement for Doc.
Tony, you don't have enough troubles.
Spielberg's film will also include more black characters, including Curtis Cook as a new addition named Abe. The remake's aim is to be more representative, seeing how the original film had several non-Latino actors in Hispanic roles.
If you can fight in America. If you can fight in America.
Moreno, who was born in Puerto Rico, was asked to have her skin darkened, which she, quote, really resented.
Don't you touch me.
Those issues aside, most would agree that the 1961 film still holds up as one of the greatest movie musicals ever made. Aside from its craft, performances, and music, why do we keep coming back to West Side Story? Perhaps it's because youth violence and prejudice are every bit as relevant today as they were in the 50s and 60s.
This is about family. He's a gangster.
Gangster! Now you sound like a real American.
Whether you think nothing has changed or that progress is slowly being made, we're still searching for a new way of living and a way of forgiving.
All of you! You all killed him! And my brother! And Riff! Not with bullets and guns! With hate!
A musical might not solve these problems, but its message can bring us one step closer to that peaceful, quiet place, somehow, someday, somewhere.
There's a place for us.
You're not Puerto Rican.
Somewhere.
Is that okay?
A place for us.
You tell me.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.